I hate to do this to you, but what cholesterol series would be complete if we didn't go over the 4 groups of foods that you really need to avoid if you have high cholesterol or you just want to keep your cholesterol in a healthy range? They are red meats, processed meats, refined carbohydrates, and fried foods. Let's break down each one of those categories right now. Let's start with the category of red meat. This is very important to completely eliminate or really reduce. I'm talking like no more than once a month. Red meat is really high in saturated fats, and saturated fats in particular raise the amount of low density lipoprotein, or that lousy cholesterol in your blood. Red meats raise that lousy cholesterol. This puts you at direct risk for heart disease and strokes and other vascular problems. So if you want to keep your cholesterol down, avoid red meats. And those specifically are beef and lamb. I know pork is often considered a white meat, but it's also very high in saturated fats. So really limit the amount of beef, pork, and lamb you're eating, particularly in ground form. It tends to be higher fat. Now, don't stress. There are plenty of low cholesterol protein meat alternatives. If you follow me on Instagram, you see I cook a lot with beans and lentils, nuts and mushrooms. Those really can replace that umami flavor, that richness in your meals, but give you really healthy plant-based options for high protein. And in fact, beans probably help people live longer. So not only are we reducing the saturated fats from cholesterol, but we're actually helping you add a few healthy years to your life. So those are good substitutes for red meat. The next category is processed meats. If you are not sure what a processed meat is, let me give you some examples. These are things like hot dogs, bacon, sausages, often lunch meats, ham, meats that have been processed typically with lots of salt or sodium, and they use the fattiest parts of the meat that's left over to put into these processed, I'll call them meat alternatives. They're really unhealthy for you. In fact, the World Health Organization has declared bacon to be a carcinogenic. It causes cancer, specifically colon cancer, and this is akin to the way that cigarettes cause lung cancer. So there's really no way around this one. You've got to eliminate processed meats out of your diet. If you've got to keep some sort of meat alternative around, you really want to think about skinless options like skinless turkey or skinless chicken, or just do without it altogether and go for things like tempeh and tofu and even a coconut alternative to bacon. There are lots of creative ideas out there, and you can really learn to love these new flavors. My favorite is tempeh bacon. You can buy it pre-marinated or you can make your own. I'll link a recipe down in the comments for you. I'm Dr. P. I forgot to introduce myself. We're here to eat better, to feel better, and to follow me on a journey to grow some of these healthy foods so that we can learn how to grow them, preserve them, and enjoy them so we can all feel a little bit better. Our third category is going to be refined carbohydrates, or specifically baked goods. I don't think this will be surprising to anybody. We know that cakes and cookies and sugar-loaded muffins are really not healthy for us. If you think about it, you really have to add a lot of butter and shortening into these foods, even things like croissants and pastries and other typical breakfast goods. These have a lot of butter and shortening in them, and butter and shortening also contribute to high cholesterol levels because they're really high in saturated fat. So this is a fancy way to say limit butter. But if you are baking, there are a lot of healthy alternatives, like even a whole avocado, a banana, applesauce. You could substitute eggs and use flax eggs or chia eggs. Follow me on Instagram. I use these things in my baking all the time. And then you can see what kind of foods we enjoy as a family and healthy alternatives to these refined carbohydrates and extra sweet processed foods so that we can keep our cholesterol levels down and we can feel better in the process. And last but not least, fried foods. You all know fried foods. They're dipped in oil, they're coated in butter, they're fried on the top of the stove, or they're just straight up put into a deep fryer. I'm talking about mozzarella sticks, onion rings, French fries, even chicken wings. These foods get coated in oil, which means they're coated in saturated fats. Think about this as just going inside your blood vessels and then coating them all over again. We want to keep those blood vessels clean. You've got some tips, you know some supplements you can take, you know some nuts that you can eat to keep those blood vessels clean. So don't clog them up with heavily laden saturated fat oiled foods. If you love the taste of a crispy food, think about baking them at very high temperature. Specifically potatoes, they do really well with this, making something like a potato wedge at 425 degrees in the oven or even hotter, or putting it on broil at the end to get that nice crisp. Or consider investing in an air fryer so that you can air fry foods and get that typical crunch without all of that unhealthy oil that leads to high cholesterol. I know you learned something, though you probably knew these weren't the best foods for you to be eating. I'm going to link the rest of the series here if you haven't gone back. Catch up on everything you should do for healthy cholesterol, and I'll see you in a future video. Thanks for spending some time with me today.